one evening, and he said, "You like languages? There's another language in Israel, meaning Arabic. Besides Hebrew, there's another language, Arabic. And because you're interested in languages, and because you already know one Semitic language, you might want to start studying Arabic when we get there." So he planted that seed in my brain. And when we went, I actually did start studying Arabic, both spoken and Fusha, the classical language.
Yes.
And because I already knew Hebrew, it was like in each lesson when they had vocabulary, I would look at the words that I already recognized from Hebrew. I'd check those off immediately, memorize those, and then I could focus on the other ones. So that's I hope that answers that question.
Uh, thank you so much. My apologies. I have, you know, uh, forget
Forgotten to
to
start.
record. So I do not want to miss anything from this interesting meeting. So I will ask you the second question, which is so much related to the first one. Uh, um, how did your only educational environment contribute to your interest in language and culture? I know you have answered this, but if you just say it in brief, I do appreciate it.
Yeah. Um, well, again, I have my parents to thank for the
Yes.
uh, the education that I got. It was very important to them, and I think that it's my message to people is the parents' involvement in their children's education is super important. It's I can't stress that enough. Um, my every place that I went, my parents would come to visit. When I went uh, after I graduated from high school, I lived for a year on a kibbutz in Israel, and each one of my parents came to visit. Uh, after I got my MA, no, after I got my BA at UCLA, I went and lived in an Arab village in Israel for 2 years on a program called Interns for Peace, or Bara'im Salam in Arabic, Nitzanei Shalom in Hebrew, the Buds of Peace, a program designed to bring Jews and Arabs together. And because, so my parents came to visit me in the village, and because it was in Israel and the Arabs there could speak Hebrew, my father could speak with them, and that was nice. When I lived in Turkey for a year, they came to Istanbul and visited. When I lived in France for a year, they came and visited. Wherever I went with my the first edition of my dictionary, my father was already ill, but he said to me, maybe I could make a map of Kurdistan to go with your dictionary, and facing the title page on the first edition, actually, and the second edition of the dictionary, is my father's map. So they put their stamp of approval on everything that I did, and I have them to thank for that.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Michael Chyet. I found something that was really interesting about your dissertation, PhD dissertation. So, uh, uh, can you tell me what drew you to Kurdish as your primary focus, and how did this lead to your dissertation on, Muzin?
Um, so in addition to languages, I also like music, folk music.
Mhm.
Lang-
Yeah.
and actually, when we went to Israel and I started studying Arabic, we would listen to.
Sorry.
I think some people need muting.
Yes, please.
Um, so I would listen to Arabic music on the radio when when we were in Israel. That was and I was really interested in it. So I became very interested in Middle Eastern music, and also um, towards the end of high school, I started becoming interested in folk dancing. Um, Originally just Israeli folk dancing, but then I became much more interested in international folk dancing. And my friend Stephanie, who is here in the audience, is somebody who I met when I first moved to LA way back in 1980, no, 1978, maybe 70. I think it was that long ago. Um, so anyway, my interest in international folk dancing, largely Balkan folk dancing, so Bulgarian, Macedonian, Greek, Albanian, Romanian, um, but also uh, Turkish and Armenian. Um, and I remember when I was an undergrad at UCLA, I was reading a dance description, and it said, "This is a dance of the Kurdish minority of Eastern Turkey." And I was like, how old would I have been then? 19, 20, something like that. And now I'm embarrassed to say it, but I thought to myself, you mean there's someone in Turkey besides the Turks? Now I'm, I feel uh, embarrassed, but
Yes.
I realized that the music that I really like, the music with the defo zerna, those sort of dances were actually Kurdish dances. So when I realized that, I made a beeline for the library at UCLA. I was looking for a textbook to start studying uh, Kurdish, and there was no textbook for Kurmanji, but there was a reference grammar by Jela- Jeladet Bedr Khan and Roger Lescaut, written in French. And because I already knew French, um, I could read it. It not being in English a was not a an obstacle for me. Was not a barrier. Um, so that was when I first started becoming aware of the Kurds and taking interest. But it wasn't for many years until I actually started studying uh, Kurdish. But well, I guess to fully answer your question, I have to continue with the story. So let's see. When I came back from the 2 years in that Arab village, um, I went to study at UC Berkeley. So first, I got my BA in Arabic at UCLA in 1980, and then 1980 to 1982, I lived in that Arab village. And at the end of those 2 years, I decided that I was going to visit Turkey on the way back. So I started teaching myself Turkish. Well, first I started teaching myself Persian and then Turkish. So from Arabic, when you study Persian, there's lots of if you already know Arabic and you study Persian, there's already a lot of Arabic words in the Persian. And then if you already know Arabic and Persian and you study Turkish, there are already a lot of Arabic and Persian words that you know. So it was sort of like each language that I learned, the languages that I had already studied, I took with me. So um, so towards the end of my 2 years in Israel, I started teaching myself Turkish, and then I went to Turkey for 2 months, I guess it was. And that was in uh, January of 1983, I guess. So shortly after the Darbe, after the coup. Um, and nobody knew English then, so the whole country was my language laboratory. I I spoke Turkish with people, but I remember when I was in Konya, and I remembered that I had heard some Kurdish music when I was in Israel, and so I went to a place where they sell cassettes, music cassettes, and I said, "Do you have any Kurdish music?" And the guy said, well, it's very nice music, but it's yasak. It's forbidden. Karacha, we can't sell it to you. So that's like when I first became aware of the issue of the Kurdish language being suppressed in Turkey. Uh, so then I finished. I went back to the United States, and I I went to the UC Berkeley um, for my graduate program to get a master's and a PhD. And I wanted to study folklore with Alan Dundas, a very fine folklorist. That's why I chose Berkeley as opposed to other schools. But at the same time, I was studying Arabic, and I was also taking Turkish and Persian my first year. And so there was something called a FLAS scholarship, Foreign Language Area Studies, FLAS scholarship. And many people were applying for a FLAS scholarship in Arabic. So there was a great deal of um, competition for that. So I got the bright idea of applying for a FLAS scholarship in Turkish. And I was the first one to do that, and I got it. And so the scholarship meant that I didn't have to, tuition was free, but I had to take a course, at least one course in the language of the scholarship every semester. So instead of focusing on Arabic, I was taking courses in Arabic, but I had to take a course in Turkish every semester. So my focus became more and more on Anatolia, and it was not very long before I actually decided to study Kurdish. Um, so, what was it? In 1985, I went to Istanbul for a summer course in Turkish at Boğaziçi, at Bosporus University. But I decided that summer that I was going to actually start learning Kurdish. So I put out the word with my friends, my colleagues, that I was looking for a native speaker of Kurdish who wanted to study English. Somebody who I could help study English and learn Kurdish from. So about 2 days later, one of my classmates said, I found a guy. He's a waiter at a restaurant in Sultanahmet in the old part of Istanbul. So I went and I met him. His name was Ahmed. He was from Semsur, Adiyaman. And so for the rest of the summer, I would get together with him after my Turkish classes in the morning. I would go down to um, Sultanahmet, and I would stroll around the old neighborhoods in Fatih and Çarşamba and Samatya and Mercan and Eminönü, Sirkeci, that whole area. And he would he didn't know how to teach, so I would say, how do you say brother and sister and mother and father, and what are the numbers, and how do you say I go and you go? And so I sort of elicited the information from him. So um, then I went back to Berkeley and continued my studies. Um, and then I applied for a Fulbright scholarship to go study in Turkey for a year. And my original project was supposed to be a restudy of Turkish dialects 40 years after Ahmet Caferoğlu had published folk tales and riddles and proverbs and folk songs and things like that in various dialects, Turkish dialects from all over Turkey. And I was particularly interested in the ones from the east, from Malatya and Kars and Erzurum and uh, Elazığ and Maraş and places like that. Oh, and Gaziantep. So I got the scholarship, and I went and I went to the Ataturk University in Erzurum. That's where I was being hosted, and but I wanted to from there I wanted to go to all of the places that Caferoğlu had gone to 40 years previously and do a restudy. However, the Turkish government would not allow me to go to villages. I could only go to cities. I could not go to villages. And before I left Erzurum, every time I had to go to the Emniyet Müdürlüğü, to the security division of the police, and get permission to go. And they would give me permission to go for like 5 days. So in real serious field work, you go and stay as long as you need to go until you feel that you've gotten enough material. But they gave me 5 days, and then I had to come back and report to them. So by the end of the year, I looked at what I had been able to collect after 5 days here and 5 days there, and I thought to myself, I cannot write a serious dissertation based on this. If they think I'm so dangerous, who am I to disappoint them? So I dropped the whole Turkish dialect project, and I decided I'm going to write my dissertation on Memuzin, on Meme Alan. So I collected, I think it was 19 versions that had been, almost all of them had been published over the previous 150 years. So I collected all of them, translated them all into English, and did a comparative folkloristic analysis. And my professor, Alan Dundas, had said, when you're writing a dissertation, basically you're writing a book, just using the dissertation process as an excuse to write the book. So the dissertation is 2 volumes. The first volume is analysis. The second volume is the English translation of all of the 19 versions. And at the same time, I had already started working on my dictionary. So there were a lot of words that I came across in translating the various versions of Memuzin that went into the dictionary. So in a nutshell, with a rather large nutshell, I guess, that's how I decided to write my dissertation on Memuzin. However, it has not been published as a book because in those days, publishers were not interested in something as obscure as Kurdish folklore. Today, it would be a lot easier. But the problem is today there are a lot more versions of Memuzin out there, and I would have to update it. And at some point, I probably will, but there's a lot of work to be done yet.
Okay, good. That is really interesting. The story behind writing your dissertation. Thank you so much, and I do appreciate that you have explained it in a clearly way. Uh, Dr. Chyet, can you share any memorable fieldwork experience while studying Kurdish-speaking communities? Although you have mentioned so many things, mentioned UC Berkeley, and these
Well,
things.
I have 2 examples that I can give you. One of them just happened yesterday,
Good.
and the other one happened when I was working at the Library of Congress. So the one that happened yesterday, so every Sunday I meet with a couple of Kurdish friends on Zoom, and we speak in Kurmanji for a couple of hours.
Mhm.
At least one of them is here. Hi, Roj. um,
Hi,
and so,
Melissa.
hi. Yes, Kaudosh. So one of my friends, Fakhri, has recently moved to Nashville, Tennessee, which has the largest Kurdish community in North America. And so we were speaking, and all of a sudden he just moved to Nashville within the last couple of weeks. So it's a new house. So we're talking, and all of a sudden there's this wasp
Oh,
or Jehra Surah. So it was buzzing around inside his house. And he said, how'd this get here? And he had a friend visiting from another town, from Silopi, which is right over the border from Zachel.
indeed, yeah.
And so we were talking about the. I know several words for wasp. There's Mose in Kurmanji. There's Mose.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
Zilket. There's Sting. Which Sorani you also have Sting.
Uh,
Um,
the participant is answering this. For example, Mr. Jabir says that Senkasor, or you say Zengazora, Zengazora with the on se in our dialect, and we say Zardawala, but I think these are two different distincts. Zardawala is different from Zengazora, as far as
yeah.
I know.
Well,
Yeah,
well,
yeah,
let's not get
good.
into the in specific insect. But anyway, my point is, this friend of his from Salopi said, "Oh, we call them seu," which is a word that I had never heard before. Seu. I just put it in the chat.
Yeah,
It looks like the Sorani word for an apple, save.
so, yeah.
But so I looked it up in all of the dictionaries, as I do whenever I get a new word, and I found it in 7 dictionaries, including Al Hadiya Al Hamidiyya, which is from the 19th century. So the word seo has quite a quite a I can't think of what the word is in English right now, which is annoying. Uh, anyway, it's quite well attested in the dictionaries. So that is an example of how I add words to the dictionary. By speaking to somebody, they present a word, and then I search for it in all of the existing dictionaries. And if there are variant forms of it, I add them. So that is a word that I just came across yesterday. But look how berek how um, coincidental it was. It just so happened that this bug was flying around, and it just so happened that Fakhri had this guest from Slopi who was visiting. But all of those things came together, and out of it, I got a new word for my dictionary. So I'm very happy about that. Um, so that's an example of uh, a word that I got from a native speaker. I have another example from a written source. And also, it's an example of how my job at the Library of Congress, cataloging books in Middle Eastern languages, dovetailed, worked nicely together with my study of the Kurdish language and finding new words for my dictionary. So I cataloged books in Middle Eastern languages and books about the Middle East in Western languages. And there was a book in French, which was an ethnography of a Yazidi village in Armenia. And so in this book, uh, I was looking at it. It was of interest to me. So I didn't just catalog it, I also was reading it. And mention was made of a stair, something that is called a stair. And um, I'm going to share some
Good.
images. So stair, first of all, this is what a stair looks like. You see this, all of these, all of these cushions and blankets. Just about every Kurdish household has these. When the couple is married, people give them as a gift these beautiful sewn and embroidered cushions and blankets, and they're kept in the living room or in the salon, in the guest room. And whenever somebody comes to visit, they have mattresses and pillows for them. So that's what a stair is. So here is the entry for my dictionary. Ster, there's first ster is estera and sorani, meaning a store. So
Mm.
ster is number two. Bedding arranged in a pile and covered with a carpet. Turkish yüklük. So here's a quote which I translated from the original French. Every Yazidi home must have a stair, generally installed in the living room facing east. The stair is a pile of mattresses and blankets placed on rocks or on a box mattress. It is covered with a carpet or a sheet which is removed at night. Open from sunset to sunrise, the stair replaces the sun in its absence. The stair is hallowed. It is at once a visual representation of the home and a protector of its property. The Yazidis hide valuable items in the stair. So here's the book. Estelle Amie de la Bretèque, Paroles mélodisées, récits épiques et lamentations chez les Yézidis d'Arménie. So melodized words, epic receipts and lamentations of the Yazidis of Armenia. So I became aware of that word from that book. Then, about 6 months later, there appeared on my desk another book, this time a book published in Armenia in Kurdish. It was versions of Gorogli, Kuroglu in Turkish, Kurdish versions of it. And so I started reading the story, and it mentioned a stair, which I had just found out about like 6 months earlier. So um, I'll just read in English here. A noise came from the sky. Lightning struck the earth. He saw a piece of iron there. He put this iron in his sack, took it out, and gave it to his wife. The woman picked up the iron, threw it under the saddlebag, put it under the stair so that it should stay there. So remember, we said here the Yazidis hide valuable items in the stair. So here's an example of a woman's hiding an item in the stair. It was an exact match. And if I hadn't been working at the library, I wouldn't have known of the existence of either of these books. So when I had this nice example of usage, then I went and I did research and I found it in uh, several other dictionaries. Then I added the word to my dictionary. So it's in the second edition of my dictionary. But I mean, I very often came across words that in the Kurdish books that I was cataloging for the library.
Good. Both examples were, very interesting. Thank you so much. Dr. Michael Child, although you have mentioned something about your academic path in US LA and US Berkeley, but my question is that how did these academic paths, I mean, UCLA to UC Berkeley, shape your multilingual development?
Well, I mean, the whole time that I worked, that I was a graduate student in Berkeley, I had a job in the library. I was a graduate student employee working in the library, and they hired me specifically to handle books in Middle Eastern languages. So Arabic and Turkish and Hebrew and Yiddish. But I also got to see all of these books in all of the languages. I mean, this was a university library, and they got books in German and Russian and Polish and French and Spanish. I got to see all of them. Um, and I really enjoyed working there and seeing all these books. And I got all sorts of ideas for a lot of my research. For instance, I started collecting both Arabic and Kurdish riddles. Someday I hope to publish a corpus of Arabic riddles and folk riddles and of Kurdish riddles. I've been collecting them for years, but it started when I was cataloging Arabic books at the library. And I had learned one or two riddles when I lived in the Arab village before I came to graduate school. So when I saw working in the library, when I saw a book which was a collection of Lebanese riddles, I thought to myself, gee, I wonder if they have that riddle I learned uh, in the Arab village in Israel. And I looked, and sure enough, it was there. But I started Xeroxing every collection of Arabic riddles I could find. And then I started looking for Kurdish riddles after that. And I don't know if you can see here, these
Yeah,
are
indeed.
Kurdish riddles. These are my Kurdish riddle collection right there. The Arabic ones are over there. But anyway, um, so then, well, many years later, when I started working at the Library of Congress, again, I was um, able to use all of my languages as part of my job. You know, the languages like Arabic, Turkish, Persian, Kurdish, Syriac, and then I would catalog books in French and other European languages about the Middle East. Uh, and people would come to me and ask, like a book in Russian that had an added title page in Arabic. Can I add that to the book? So I mean, people would always come to me as a reference person to help with, particularly when they had an added title page in one of our languages for a book.
Um,
So,
you've you've unusual brain. What do I mean? Back to the history, people like philologists like Sir William Jones uh, could speak only 20 to 30 languages. People asking even in chat book is okay. And also I've heard something. So my question is that how many languages do you consider yourself fluent in versus those you have studied academically? Can you count them?
well, I actually did um, count them today in preparation for this. Um, Apparently, I have studied 45 languages, if
Oh,
I'm not forgetting some. But but some of them I don't even remember. Some of the
mhm.
because because I just hadn't continued with them. But the languages that I know well, so, fluency has to do with speaking, but remember, some of them I read. You know,
Yes, yeah.
I don't have somebody to practice with on a regular basis. But I have 10, I guess, that I'm pretty fairly fluent at. But then
And
there
they,
are another 10 that I'm working on now, and then there's some that I just know bits and pieces of. But I know a lot about languages. Right, you know, like for instance, I'm not fluent in Swedish or Danish, but I know about the Scandinavian languages. I mean, they're famous, for instance, for having sharing with Sorani, the post-positive definite article. Destaka in Swedish, hus means house, huset, the house. You add the definite article the at the end of the noun in all of the Scandinavian languages, just as you do in Sorani, Central Kurdish, though Kurmanji does not have that. But I mean, I know about that sort of phenomenon in languages that I don't know well. I still know about them. I know about their grammar, but I don't know the whole vocabulary. I couldn't read a book without a dictionary in Swedish, for instance, but I could figure out in general what it's talking about, you know. But Swedish is not one of the though the Kurds have brought me to Sweden many times because there's a large Kurdish community there. But generally, when I go there, I speak in Kurdish, not in. And all the Swedes know English anyway, so it's like, you know, you try and say something in Swedish and they answer you in English because they know English so much better. then I know Swedish.
Okay. So 45 languages. So that it seems that this is works for language when they say to use it or to lose it. Because you have said that I don't even remember, some of them.
Well, yeah, but my father was a wonderful role model in that because he, after that year when we went to Israel and he studied modern Hebrew, for the rest of his life, every just about every day, he would at least take a half an hour and sit and read something in Hebrew. He would read an article in a newspaper or part of a book he was reading, but every day. So for 30 years, he did that, and his Hebrew was so beautiful. I mean, he started also translating Hebrew poetry into English, so creating poems in English based on Hebrew original. So that was my role model. And now there are several of the languages that I study. I try and do a little bit every day.
Good.
Uh, right. And again, that's part of learning a language is keeping it alive. It's something you studied in high school and you never did anything with after that, you're not going to remember. But like I try and listen to like today's Monday, so I listen to a little bit of German radio on Monday, Tuesday's French, Wednesday's Dutch, Thursday's Portuguese, Friday's Yiddish, and of course I'm talking Kurdish all the time, teaching Kurdish twice a week, and then on Sundays I have talked with my friends in Kurdish. So those languages. Oh, and then I have a friend who I speak with in Hebrew on Fridays. So I mean, you got to if you're studying a language, you got to keep it alive, and doing a little bit every day is a wonderful way to do that.
Good. Well, I know it's more than 45 minutes, but I have still a couple of questions, if you don't mind.
Sure.
What,
That is, if people aren't falling asleep, if people are interested in hearing, I'm happy to continue for a little bit longer.
I'm sure that people are enjoying, and because we have so many commenters in the chat box. Okay, so good. So the other question is, which language outside of the Middle Eastern honors holds a special cultural affinity for you?
Well, my family is from Eastern Europe, so the ancestral language was Yiddish. I'll put that in the chat. People may not have heard it. Yiddish is
Yeah.
um, based on Middle High German, they say, but it was German which was then taken and spoken in Slavic speaking areas, Poland, uh, Ukraine, Russia, well, and also Lithuania, which is not Slavic, uh, not a Slavic language. But anyway, so both sides of my family um, were Yiddish speaking, and I taught myself Yiddish. One of the books that I found in the attic when I was a kid was a, a book for learning Yiddish that my father had given my mother as a gift when they first got married. Um, so yeah, Yiddish is. I'm told that I sing I sing well in Yiddish, but anyway, that is my cultural language. It's the language of my heritage, shall we say. Hebrew, don't forget, is a language that was dead for 2,000 years. It lay dormant for 2,000 years and was revived at the beginning of the 20th century. Um, but the Jews spoke Yiddish in Eastern Europe. They spoke Judeo-Spanish, also called Ladino, in the lands of the Ottoman Empire. Yeah, so
Good. Uh, Dr. Chad, can you share a moment in your career that felt especially rewarding? I mean,
okay. So when I was a graduate student at Berkeley working in the library, That was in the 1980s. 1983 to 1991 is when I got my degree. Um, at that time, the Library of Congress came out with a system for Romanizing Kurdish in the Latin alphabet, which I disagreed with. It was clear to me, I had already started working on my dictionary. It was clear to me that the same, the Latin orthography for Kurdish could also work for Sorani, for that there was a simple one-on-one correspondence. And this is an idea which I got from Kurdoyev. It's a Kurdish idea. I simply adopted it, but it was not my invention. So what I wanted to see was Kurdish books cataloged in the library system, um, according to that, according to the, well, actually, I'm going to share again. This is the Kurdish romanization table that you'll find in my dictionary, and you'll also, and this is now what's used at in the library world, not just at the Library of Congress, but in the library world. So I'm getting ahead of myself, um, but so I wrote a letter to the Library of Congress. This was back in the 1980s, saying that I was a graduate student studying Kurdish, and probably one of the only people, if not the only person, who both knew Kurdish and knew how to catalog. And I suggested that instead of this system that they were coming up with, that they should use the simple one-on-one correspondence. And the person who was in charge of that division came to visit Berkeley when I was there, and my my boss was very supportive of me, and they encouraged me to go speak to him. So I went and spoke to him, and he refused. He said, "No, nothing doing. No, we're not going to do that." So for the next 20 years, it was my dream to change that. And so eventually, I moved to Washington in 1995 to become the editor of the Kurdish service at the Voice of America, and I did that for 5 years. And then I went to Paris for a year and taught Kurdish at the University of Paris at INALCO. And then I came back, and a friend of mine suggested that I send my resume to the Library of Congress, and they responded saying, "Come in for an interview." So I did, and they took me on as a contractor for a year and a half, at the end of which a position became available, and I applied for it. By then, I knew that they had all of these Kurdish books piled up, waiting for me to catalog, because nobody had ever used the system that this guy had proposed. That remember, he had refused to adopt my suggestion. So just about that was I started there 2 days after 9/11. So on Thursday, September 13th, 2001, I started working at the Library of Congress, and it wasn't until another year and a half that I became a full-fledged employee. But right after that is when the first edition of my dictionary came out. And shortly after that, I was interviewed by a Kurdish journalist in Kurmanji, and the article came out in Kurmanji in Latin script, and then I found it on the internet, the exact same thing in the Arabic script, which was a beautiful example of what I had been arguing all along, that there's a simple one-on-one correspondence between Kurdish and the Latin script and the Arabic script. So when it came to after my dictionary came out, the library said to me, you just published a dictionary. You tell us how we're going to do Kurdish at the Library of Congress. And so I said, well, then we're going to use the system that I had proposed 20 years previously. And so that's the system that is now in use throughout the library world. So that's a story with a happy ending. But as I said in my previous talk with you, I don't see why that needs to be limited to the library world. It's also for all things written in Kurdish in the Arabic script, they can be transcribed into the Latin orthography rather than transcribing the way you would transcribe Arabic, which is not written in the Latin script. Since Kurdish is written in both alphabets, and since there's a simple one-on-one correspondence between the two of them, that's what I am encouraging all Kurds to embrace now. But to answer your question, that's my accomplishment. Or if you want to look at it the other way, I'm the one to blame. It's my fault that that happened, and I'm proud of it.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Michael Chyet, for your experience, sharing your experience, stories, and all these interest um, um, encyclopedic answers. So we
May
have
I
some,
answer some of the questions in the chat?
yeah, we have so many questions. So starting with Imran Nabipur, uh, what has been your main purpose of learning Turkish, Arabic, and Hebrew? As we know, Arabic and Hebrew belong to the same genealogical linguistic family, but the other languages you have learned belong to different language families. Did you learn Kurdish only out of interest, or was there another reason?
Well, if you know my politics, you know that I'm not supportive of the CIA or any of that sort of stuff. I don't learn these languages to help spy on people. I learn these languages because I love them, the people and the music and the food, and because they interest me and they make me happy. I don't do it to further any government's political agenda. If anything, I would be considered a threat to their political agenda.
Uh, Another question, Dr. Michael Child from Nicholas. Yeah, Nicholas Landivar. Nicholas asks in your analysis of riddles in different languages, have you found any type of syntactic patterns being followed or preference for certain semantic domains, either from the different languages or across the different languages? How do they compare to English riddles? Have you tried translating them into English?
Well, I have an early article about Arabic riddles, which I'd be happy to share with you. Um, Here, this is my email address. If you'll send me an email, I'll be happy to share that with you. But I have not even begun to analyze the all of the Arabic and Kurdish riddles that I have been collecting. But at some point, I mean, I had to do an annotated bibliography of theoretical works on the riddle genre when I was a graduate student. So of course, that was many years ago. I'm sure there are many more articles on it now, but I certainly have an idea about the theoretical nature of analyzing riddles. Um,
Yeah.
but
Um,
someone asked if whether I had visited Memuzin's tomb
yeah,
in
that's from
Jebel.
in Nasruddin Pearl, curiosity question, Mr. Child. Have you been visiting Mamuzin's? Yeah, Mamuzin's
Yeah,
grave.
I did visit it in 19 September 1992, the day after Ape Musa was murdered, actually, because I had met him the day before he was murdered.
Okay, someone raised his hand. Pero, you can speak, please. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much, dear professor, for this great presentation. So my name is Spyro. I'm a master's student in politics and international relations at the UK University of Cristiano. Uh, to be honest, I have a question. I don't know how much it is related with your background because my question is uh, in related with the politics. So my question is how to form a standard language. How many ways do we have? For instance, could we start with the education or from the communication from the mass media, or how much market is important to form a standard language, especially for the southern Kurdistan, and does it necessarily to include a couple of the dialects or merge dialects in order to form a standard language? Thank you for everyone.
Pedro, I have been giving talks on my suggestions for that for years. And again, if you'll email me, I'll be happy to share with you the article that I've written about it. But I speak about that um, frequently, and I'd be happy to. That's it would take too long to answer right now, but I definitely have suggestions about it.
Um, Okay, another question from Diler Piran. He asks if you are familiar with Kurdish literary works, especially classic poetry.
Yeah, you mean like Ahmed Khani and uh, Faqih Tehran and Malai Jaziri and Piramerd and Nali and Haji Qadri Koi. Yeah, I mean, I can't. Um, I don't know them by heart. I can't recite all of them, but I'm certainly aware of them. I've cataloged books about all of them and established headings for their names for the library world as part of my job at the Library of Congress.
Good. Another question from Adam Ahmad says, in your idea, if native language learned person second language, I mean foreign language, must leave a mother tongue. I'm not sure that I understand you.
In your idea, if native language learned person second language. Well, I am an
He
example.
means that if a native language person wants us to learn a new or second language, yeah, should he leave a native language completely? I'm sorry, I cannot
No.
understand your question. I'm so sorry. So,
Well,
yeah,
I
so
understand. I'm what I'm going to guess he's saying is if your native language is Kurdish and you have to study Turkish, should you totally abandon Kurdish? And the answer is obviously no, you should not totally abandon Kurdish. By knowing both Kurdish and Turkish, you're enriched by knowing two languages. I'm an example of somebody who at age 6 was introduced to a second language, and that opened the world of languages to me. I think for children to be exposed to more than one language is very important. But one's native language, Kurdish, is certainly the most important language.
good. I think we have another question from Scala said, what is your advice to the upcoming researcher in linguistics, especially between applied linguistics and linguistics?
Uh, I'm not sure I understand the question.
I think Scala, I think is Sakala Stanley asks about your advice for the younger researchers in the field of linguistics.
That's awfully general.
Yes, in this
I need
is
a more specific question.
Oh, I was trying to find out which area would you advise an upcoming researcher, either to venture into applied linguistics or in linguistics. in general.
Well, what excites you? What floats your boat, as they say in English? What makes you excited? What do you want to study? What There's no one answer. It's what speaks to you, what you find exciting and interesting, or if you're aware of something that has not been studied enough and you think you could contribute in that, go for it. If that's applied linguistics, great. If it's linguistics in general, that's great. My problem with linguistics in general is they use all of these fancy terms that no one else understands. And very often, when I try to read something, they don't illustrate it with examples. They just give some theoretical idea and they don't give you examples, and I don't know what they're talking about. Everything needs to be illustrated with specific examples. That's my criticism of the linguistics field in general.
All right.
Good. Um, Dr. Chyet, Ahmed Piroz asks, how effective do you think incidental vocabulary learning, when the focus is on understanding the meaning rather than the intentional learning of words, is based on your learning journey?
Incidental vocabulary learning, like for instance, if you learn a song, memorize a song, you can by memorizing a song, the words to a song, you can learn new vocabulary. You can also learn grammatical constructions. I'm all for studying, learning songs and also proverbs and riddles and things like that that are short and can be memorized. Like every chapter in my textbooks begins with a riddle or a proverb, and specifically chosen because it's an example of the grammar dealt with in that lesson. I don't know if that answers your question exactly or not, because I'm not quite sure what you mean by incidental.
Yes. Uh, I think last question or might be contribution. Someone says, thank you so much, Dr. Chyet. Your work has been a real inspiration to me. I am just starting with a library position in the Middle East section, University of Oxford. May I ask, in your view, what directions do you think Kurdish language research should take in the next decade? Yeah, it's from Awan. Request.
Again, there's so much to study. It's what you particularly find exciting that you think that you can contribute in. There's so much to do. Choose something that you feel strongly about or knowledgeable about or that you want to know more about, and go for it. I mean, there's one thing that they have for Turkish, which we need more of it for Kurdish, is, and I've cataloged God knows how many books which are the Turkish dialect of a particular region. So someone collects folk tales from that region, from people who are from that region in that dialect, and then they do an analysis of the vocabulary and of the grammar. We need things like that for Kurdish dialects everywhere. Find a native speaker who's a good storyteller or riddle teller or singer or whatever. Collect all of as many songs or examples of their repertoire as you can, and then do a study of that regional dialect, the vocabulary, the grammar. We need things like that for many Kurdish dialects. There's very relatively little stuff like that for Kurdish, and it would really enrich our knowledge of Kurdish language and folklore to have things like that. And also, it's important to have these things recorded from active bearers of oral tradition while they're still alive.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chad, but I'm so sorry for delaying you, but it seems that participants engaging your interview. So you have 2 or 3 questions so far, if you don't mind.
Don't forget, we are going to be continuing having a second.
Yeah, indeed. I was about to mention that. So, okay. Sorry.
I mean, the fact that there are so many questions means that people have
they are enjoying.
enjoyed what I'm talking about, and I'm happy. But I
Yeah.
also haven't had lunch yet.
Oh, good. So, do you have anything as a final words?
Let me just share a couple of my derushim, a couple of my
Slogan.
mottos, slogans. One is Zmane kuzarok pe nepeyevin be pasharoja. A language not spoken by children has no future. I want Kurdish to have a future. And another one is a line of poetry from Shukri Fazli.
Shukri Fazli, yes.
And now I can't think of it. God damn it. Seratai ish hamu yakbuna. Awish nabe ta her brine kaladil dabe sareji neke.
Good. Thank you so much.
Yakbun.
Yeah. Yes, Dr. Chyet, thank you so much for sharing your time, your stories, your scholastic answers, your experience tonight. So this has been such an inspiring and insightful session. So I know our participants truly enjoyed learning from your experience and reflections. So I also want to thank everyone who joined us live for being part of this special evening. So your presence and engagement mean a lot to us. As I mentioned earlier, this is just the first of several conversations, interviews we will have with Professor Chyet. We will be continuing this series, might be in October, I'm not sure, but we will send you updated.
We haven't set the date yet, but there will be more to come. So please come back, and if you have specific questions, please email me, and I'll do my best.
Good. So we will be continuing this series in October, inshallah. So where we will explore, new themes together. To stay tuned for updates. So until then, please take care of yourself, and thank you once again for making tonight such a memorable event. So take care and goodbye.
Watan legal. Bye bye.
Watan legal, sir.